George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Today, we're going to be talking about giving, specifically from the standpoint of the Central New York Community Foundation, one of our partners. We thank them for their support. And of course, this segment is brought to you by the Central New York Community Foundation. We're pleased to be joined by Tom Griffith. He is the Vice President of Development. Welcome, Tom. Also joining us is Lisa Alford. She is the Executive Director of ACR Health. First time I've had the chance to introduce Lisa as the Executive Director of ACR Health, long time at Onondaga County, directing aging and youth. So you fresh out of the water, Lisa.
I definitely am, George. My first public interview in Syracuse. So my inaugural interview.
I appreciate you giving Inspiration for the Nation the first crack at this. And Tom, let me start with you and talk about giving and the ways that people can give through the Central New York Community Foundation. And now is a time of year that many people begin to think about that. So why is it important for us to think about that? And why is it important for the Community Foundation?
Well, thanks, George. Yeah, the giving season is coming upon us, all of the holidays and the time where we gather and celebrate family. And it's so nice to be in a year where we actually have the opportunity to gather again, the blessing of the vaccines and being able to hopefully see our families. But so year end is a really important time for giving. Not only do people give to people that they care about, but they also give to organizations that they care about. Mm-hmm. And so that's a very peak time for the Community Foundation. We receive a lot of gifts in the last 2 to 3 months of the year for different funds that donors have created that support different nonprofits here in Syracuse. And then all of the nonprofits here in Central New York are also receiving gifts at a much higher pace. At least that's the hope that happens every year at this time.
I think I should rewind the tape though and say, what does the Central New York Community Foundation do?
We can do that. So you want me to start there?
No, I want you to tell me. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. So the Community Foundation is a public charity that allows people from our community to come and create funds that they can either create while they're alive or as part of their estate plan that support the nonprofits that are important to them. So basically, we've been around since 1927, and we have over 800 funds that have been created during that time. And they all do the same thing, which is whatever those donors want those funds to do, but they all do different things too. They support, different fields of interest, different individual charities, the community in general. Some of them are scholarships. So we basically can, work with a donor to create a fund that does what's important to them. And so that lifetime and legacy giving are really the two ways that we do that.
Yeah, and I know that you said lifetime and legacy giving. So there are different types of giving. Those are two of them. Are there more?
So inside those two, you can either give while you're alive or you can give after you're, as part of your estate. But inside of each of those, there's just a lot of different options and different things work better for different people. Like one of the ways that people give a lot during year end is from their investments. So sometimes a donor will be meeting with their investment advisor, and their investment advisor will say something like, "You've had a lot of capital gains this year. It'd be great if we could offset that with some charitable giving." And sometimes they use highly appreciated shares of stocks like Apple or something like that that's grown a lot in the past couple of years, and they donate that. It helps them avoid capital gains tax. They get a deduction, and it helps them rebalance the portfolio or reset the cost basis in their different holdings, and really can be a great tool for the investment advisors, the financial advisors, to do the work on the portfolio that needs to be done, and also save some taxes for donors that are going to be giving to charity.
So as the Director of Development, your job is to,
My job is, and my team, we work to help advisors that are reaching out on, when they have clients that want to, either need to create a fund. The most common kind of fund that people create this time of year are donor advised funds, because that allows the donors to put dollars into those funds, and then they can send the gifts out of that fund, here through the rest of the year or in future years. And so, but it lets them get the tax deduction that they need this year. And so we work with, the professional advisors to help the clients set up their funds, and we help with donors, existing donors and new donors that come to the community foundation, make gifts to their fund or create a fund. So.
and so Lisa, you have for a lot of the things that he talked about, you fall into so a couple of those categories. But let's talk about why you give. What's your inspiration for giving? And you can talk to us about some of the different funds that you've been a part of there.
Okay. Well, I always believe that when one has been blessed, it's an opportunity to be a blessing to other people. So I've been blessed to be a blessing. And I grew up in a family where giving and giving back in various ways was very, very important, whether it was giving of our time, giving our talent, and in this particular case, our resources. And so I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I have given to our fund that is administered by the Community Foundation. Actually, when I was president, we were fortunate to be able to endow the scholarship at that time. So I was very excited about that. I've also been a part and am currently a part of the Women's Fund, which is a women's giving circle, which provides funding for programs that serve women and girls. Research has shown that many times, even though women represent half the population, there was certainly less than that percentage of funding that actually goes to women and girl focused programs. So that's vitally important to me, that we support women and girl focused programs. So I've been excited to be a part of that. And just giving in general, the philanthropy is just vitally important because many of the programs and services that are funded that I've either worked at or just supported in various ways, they certainly have applied and received funding from various community foundation funds.
And you talked about, I'm thinking about the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Scholarship Fund, and you said you were there for creating the endowment, and those funds are administered through Community Foundation. How'd that get set up?
Well, the actual scholarship fund was created before I was president. But what it actually, I think years ago, I think actually someone, they were actually, the foundation was very interested in supporting Divine Nine, as we call them, the Black Greek letter organizations. And they sort of did a matching seed funding to get African-American sororities and fraternities to develop funds with the Community Foundation. So I was around when that got started, and we had given through the years, but the scholarship was not endowed. And so what I know is that you really aren't able to give in a way in which you want your money to work for you. So in order to get to the point that we could really give out scholarships from that fund, I knew we needed to get to the point that the scholarship itself was endowed. So then we're just using the interest to fund scholarships. And so it was vitally important that we do that. And it was part of our 40th anniversary celebration. Many individual donors, and we had a larger donation from Wegmans that actually helped us to get to the point where our scholarship was finally endowed there at the foundation.
Let me ask, what does it mean to have an endowment? Is there a certain dollar threshold? Are you going to do that one time?
Sure, I can take that one.
Yeah.
So the different kinds of funds have different minimums, but the concept of endowment is you want to have enough money in the fund so that the 4 to 5% that gets spent from the fund every year, which is our typical range for spending. Right now it's 4.4%, so it's right in the middle there. But so that amount does what you want it to do. So for example, a scholarship fund has a minimum of $25,000. And when you think about what 4 to 5% is going to produce there, that's right around $1,000, a little bit more than $1,000. So with a $25,000 amount, you can make sure that that $1,000 scholarship happens every year forever. And that is what endowment means. And that's, what we at the Community Foundation are all about. We, want to have those long-term funds that are going to provide consistent support to the nonprofits here locally so that that can be stable and relied on regardless of what's happening in the market, the economy, the world, the New York State funding, no matter what's happening and all that, these funds will be able to consistently provide support. And we do that through really 2 grant rounds each year, 2 times when nonprofits come to us with grant applications, and those get evaluated, and then those grants go out and support different causes.
Appreciate that, Tom. So Lisa, talking to Lisa Alford, Executive Director of ACR Health, you also sit on the Community Foundation's Grants and Community Initiatives Committee. And so you get a chance to look at what some of the issues and needs are in the community. Can you speak to what some of the greatest needs are right now?
Certainly. Well, we certainly are seeing a lot of need as it relates to programs and services that serve children. That's always a need in our community. We also have seen many that serve various vulnerable populations. For example, persons who may be dealing with substance abuse and those types of issues, behavioral health issues. Those are always vitally important. Many persons, and I would say with the opioid epidemic, many of those needs have just grown exponentially throughout our region. I would also add that many times older adults, services that provide and support for older adults, and those who may be isolated for various reasons. Obviously, we look at many of those basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, but we're certainly looking at, many of the trends as it relates to what's going on from a human services standpoint. Many, as I said, substance use, behavioral health, those are vitally important programs and services.
And Lisa, I know that you wanted to speak to some things in the context of what is happening at ACR Health. What does ACR Health do?
ACR Health. Well, ACR Health, many people may know it. Originally, it was developed, people may know it as AIDS Community Resources. But several years ago, as a result of the organization really moving towards serving not just persons with HIV/AIDS, but really serving persons with chronic health conditions. So those can include persons that have substance use issues and behavioral health issues. We have a clinic that we partner with an organization to provide medication-assisted treatment and some acute services for persons that are in the community. So that's vitally important. We certainly also provide prevention, STD prevention, HIV testing, all sorts of STD and STI testing. We also provide care management. So persons who really have very involved and complex health conditions, many times they need assistance in managing those medical conditions, whether it's identifying housing, nutrition, transportation for getting back and forth to health services. All of those are vitally important. I mentioned about health insurance testing. I would certainly say our substance use testing, we really do an excellent job of helping people access services when it comes to substance use services, really helping them to, whether it's our harm reduction services or whether it's actual services helping a person receive counseling and assistance to really address their addiction.
Right. So we can see that there's a variety of supports in the community, and some of those supports obviously coming from the Central New York Community Foundation, and reminding the community that, especially during this time of year, it's an opportunity to think about ways to support the work that you described, Lisa, as of greatest need in this community. So since we are at year end, fourth quarter. Tom, what are some of the reminders that you want us to be mindful of at the end of the year, especially as we think about potentially giving and supporting the work of the Community Foundation?
Well, first I'd say don't wait till the last week of the year. So that's always a good rule of thumb. But also start, as you start thinking about it now, you're going to have some opportunities to be, with your family. You're going to have some opportunities, hopefully for some downtime, for some reflective time, here as the, Thanksgiving comes and other holidays come through. Take that time to really talk about what's important to you and share a little bit about, the organizations that you care about. And as you're doing that, put together sort of what your budget is, what your list is, and make those gifts. And I would encourage, everybody to try and get most of that done by the end of November, early December, especially if you're going to be using, something other than a checkbook. So if you're planning on giving stocks or mutual funds or doing something with your financial advisor, or or something that involves a question with your accountant around, your taxes, you want to make sure to start that early. You don't want to get to the end of the year and not have made the gift. So.
Yeah, that's so important. One of the things I was thinking, I wanted to flip back to you, Lisa, but then I was also thinking about another question for Tom. So I'm going to go back to Lisa.
Okay.
And say, Lisa, you know that the CNY Community Foundation, you talked about greatest needs, and they just created the Black Excellence and Equity Fund, and one of the recipients of that. Speak to why you think that is something significant for this community.
I think that is certainly significant because sometimes we know that some of the traditional ways in which processes may be set up in organizations, it might unintentionally disproportionately impact or make it difficult for some of those Black-led or types of recipients that receive funding through that program to actually break through and gain funding. And I think it actually I think Central New York Community Foundation really took the lead in our community and region with looking for ways in which, how would we make DEI come to life in giving?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
As a foundation. And so this is the Community Foundation really making that come to life, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion come to life as a philanthropic organization or as a foundation. And I know I'm a part of another organization, and we were actually looking at what were the criteria that they used, and how did they go about determining who was eligible. And what I saw was groups or individuals that actually were funded that probably never would have been funded. They aren't the largest, they may not have the broadest reach, but they do have great impact, especially as it relates to diverse Black and Brown organizations in the community. So I think the impact of those decisions will be certainly long lasting. And that's something that I certainly would be encouraging the foundation to continue doing.
Tom, as Lisa talks about that, talking about varying needs in the community, and it made me think of family, like establishing like a family fund or something to that effect. How would families go about creating their own fund to support the work that they're doing? For example, I know that there are like a lot of, especially Black community, family reunions, big thing, right? And they sometimes give out scholarships and other, or they want to do real estate, they want to do other kinds of things. Talk about, Tom, families creating their own sort of fund to build up, perhaps for an endowment or something to that effect.
Sure. The most common tool that families use when they engage us, or individuals in general when they engage us, is called the Donoradvised Fund. It has a relatively low entry point. You can start those at $10,000. It gives you the opportunity to have the ability to build a giving resource and put dollars in it when you are able to, and then have that resource there to be able to do your giving from. It allows you to leverage sort of, the resource that we have at the Community Foundation to support, inquiries and questions, help do family facilitation. So like we often work with families and their young children to help talk about, giving at that stage, but we also, help donors maybe who have had a fund for decades and now they want to transition it to the next generation. And that might be, 50-year-old children, but at the same time that allows, we can be there to help have that values conversation, that transition of, what the fund has meant to this generation and, ways that you can work with it as a family going forward. So again, I just, can't encourage people enough to talk about the organizations that they're important with their family, that are important to them with their family. I think, this time of year is a great time to do that.
Are churches involved, faith-based?
Absolutely. Yeah. Donor advised funds can support any public charity, religious institution, or governmental entity in the United States. So it really is a flexible tool.
Lisa, you talked about that you are from from a legacy of giving, like
Yes.
that is part of what you grew up with. When I think about the lady, what was her name? Osceola McCarthy.
McCarthy, yes.
Yeah, McCarthy.
Right, yes.
And you want to share her story?
Yes, she was a housekeeper for, I think it was in Alabama, I believe it was, Alabama or Mississippi, for college for years and years. And she saved and had put away little bits of money at a time. And no one knew, probably except whoever was advising her. And so that was a great example of little becoming a lot. As that funding grew, and now that funding actually supports scholarships for students to attend university. As I said, I believe it's either Mississippi or Alabama. I can't remember, but it was such a shock to everyone because everyone thought, oh, she didn't have very much. I don't think she didn't have children. And so people were quite shocked after she passed that this fund had been developed and she'd been putting this little bit of money away, little by little, but it grew. And I think that's
$150,000.
Yes, I think that is a great testimony to people thinking, well, I don't have as much as, I may not be a millionaire, but that shows you how a little bit over a long period of time, how it can grow. And the impact of what she did and that decision of giving will last for generations. Yeah, and you talk about a legacy, that's a legacy right there.
Yeah, and I believe it was Mississippi, somewhere in Mississippi, where she created that. So I bring that up in terms of just to make the point that you can start where you are.
Yes.
As Tom says, there's donor advised funds at different levels, and for people to get started. To me, there's already a history of philanthropy. It's basically maybe managing it in a different way.
Yes.
If that's the way I would describe it. Lisa, help me out there.
Yes. No, I think many churches have done it, many sororities or other philanthropic organizations. And as you mentioned, families. I know families who they may not have, they've probably just put it in a savings account, not in an account, say a foundation to grow, because I think sometimes people think it has to be the $1 million at a time, not thinking of how that money
well,
from
Tom
selling,
would hope that, but we don't have that.
Right. But they, but that money that goes from folks selling fish dinners and, things that they do to raise money for the family reunions or other activities that, some of the excess can go towards, developing, a fund that can support things that are important to that family, whether it's education, whether it's supporting women, young people, various types of things, the LGBTQ plus community, what have you. There's so many ways. And so it's a very good way of individuals as well as families or other groups being able to create a legacy that will outlive them in a very formalized way. And even after they are gone, I mean, when generations yet unborn are impacted by what you do, I think that is the greatest legacy that people can leave.
Tom,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're nodding in agreement. Any final thoughts on the ways that the Central New York Community Foundation at this time of year can be supported, and how it supports various different programs within the community?
So we just encourage people to think about their giving, talk about it with their family, talk about it with their advisors. If they have questions, they're always welcome to reach out to us. We're glad to talk through what options might be available for them, either through us or not through us. We like to think of it as, the rising tide lifts all boats. So, we're happy to answer questions and point people in the right direction, regardless if it's something that, we can actually, support by creating a fund. So.
Great. All right. That's Tom Griffith. He's the Vice President of Development at the Central New York Community Foundation. Also joined by Lisa Alford, Executive Director, making her world premiere debut as Executive Director of ACR Health, longtime Commissioner for Aging and Youth in Onondaga County. And we don't want to sleep on Lisa. That was a pretty significant work that you did for many years at Onondaga County. So I want to just shout you out for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But I tell people I'm in the legacy building phase of my career, so I'm being very intentional about, what I'm doing in this part of my life and career. And I think even just the past couple of years, what's gone on in the community, what's gone on in my family, really made me really think about, where did I feel I could make a great or greater impact in the community, and getting back to the nonprofit world is where I chose to do that. So I'm really excited about the work we're doing at ACR Health, and certainly I encourage people to give to and support the work that we do in the community. And they can reach out to us. They can go to our website, www.acrhealth.org, and donate. They certainly can. We even have an event. We have events that we post.
I was going to what do you have coming up? Because I know this.
Well, this is it's a little bit different. We actually have a little drive-through healthy snack drive this coming Saturday from 10 until 2, where you can just drive through and drop off healthy snacks to support our health clinic. So we'll be giving out information about what it is that we do, but it's a way to support our health clinic, but also let the community know that we're here, and to share some information about what it is that we're doing in the community. And I also want people to be aware, we actually serve a 9-county region. So while people may know about us here in the Central New York area, but we're serving folks all the way up to St. Lawrence County, and in the Watertown area, also in the Mohawk Valley area. So our reach is quite large, even though people here may only know about what we do in Central New York. So we're doing good work and looking for ways we can accelerate that.
Excellent. Lisa Alford, Executive Director of ACR Health, also part of this Central New York Community Foundation's Grants and Community Initiatives Committee. So,
Yes.
She's all up in it. And Tom Griffith, Vice President for the Central New York Community Foundation, CNYCF.org. Thank you so much for the two of you and the work that you're doing, and for helping us to understand the importance of the work that you're doing. Continue good work. And I know that the two of you are here to help. So thank you both for being on the program. Tom,
Thanks, George.
and Lisa Alford.
Thank you so much.
It was so good to be with you both. Thank you.
Inspiration for the nation.